The moment the restaurant doors opened, the room seemed to hold its breath. Soft jazz hummed in the background, glasses clinked, and laughter floated between tables. But all of it faded when a woman in a wheelchair slowly entered, her hands resting calmly on the wheels, as if she had learned long ago how to carry both dignity and disappointment at the same time. Heads turned, eyes lingered, and assumptions filled the air before she even reached the center of the room. Across the restaurant, a single father who had already been hurt more times than he could count rose from his seat, and instead of stepping back, he knelt. Not in pity, not in shock, but in quiet honor. Before the story unfolds any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that sees beyond appearances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Her name was Grace Miller, and she had spent years bracing herself for moments like this. Moments where hope walked a thin line with humiliation. She was 34, intelligent, deeply faithful, and carried a smile that had been rebuilt after life broke it apart. 3 years earlier, a drunk driver had taken away her ability to walk, along with the career she loved as a pediatric nurse and the future she thought was guaranteed. What the accident could not take, though it tried, was her belief that God still had a plan for her life, even when loneliness whispered otherwise late at night. The blind date had been arranged by a church friend who insisted that not all good men were intimidated by wheelchairs or broken paths. Grace had almost canceled. She had canceled before, too many times. She remembered the men who suddenly remembered urgent phone calls, the ones who smiled politely but never called back, and the one who said she deserved someone stronger than him. Each experience left a quiet scar, invisible but heavy. Still, that afternoon, she prayed in her small apartment, asking for strength, not romance. She asked God to help her walk into the evening with courage, even if she rolled out with disappointment. His name was Daniel Harper. He was 38, a widowed single dad raising an 8-year-old daughter named Lily in a modest suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. Life had not been gentle with him either. 5 years earlier, cancer had taken his wife, leaving him with grief he still carried in the small hours of the morning, and a child who sometimes cried herself to sleep, asking why mommy could not come back from heaven just for one more hug. Daniel worked as a construction project manager by day and learned how to braid hair and pack lunches by night. Dating was not something he sought out. It felt disloyal at first, then exhausting. But his pastor had gently reminded him that love did not replace love. It expanded the heart. When Daniel agreed to the blind date, he was told only that Grace was kind, strong, and deeply rooted in her faith. No one mentioned the wheelchair. When he arrived early at the restaurant, he sat nervously, adjusting his sleeves, thinking of Lily's smile that morning when she teased him about going on a date. He told himself not to expect anything, only to be present. When the doors opened and Grace entered, his heart tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. Recognition of someone who had fought battles he could not see, just as he had. Grace noticed him immediately. She recognized the subtle pause, the flicker of surprise in his eyes, and prepared herself for the familiar shift. Her fingers tightened on the wheels and her smile became practiced, guarded. She had learned how to read rooms quickly. But then Daniel stood, and then to her astonishment, he lowered himself down until he was at eye level with her, his knee touching the polished floor. In that moment, the distance between standing and sitting disappeared. He introduced himself softly and expressed, with sincerity that could not be faked, that he was honored to meet her. Not impressed, not curious, honored. That simple act unraveled something in Grace she did not realize was still tightly wound. For the first time since the accident, she felt seen without explanation, without apology. The restaurant noise returned, but it sounded different now. Warmer, like life continuing around a moment that mattered. The evening unfolded slowly. They spoke about faith, about loss, about the strange paths life takes when plans collapse. Grace talked about her work before the accident and how she now volunteered at a church support group for people with disabilities. Daniel shared stories of Lily, of bedtime prayers, of learning how grief changes shape but never fully leaves. There was no rush, no awkwardness. Time stretched comfortably, as if both of them were surprised by how safe it felt to be honest. Yet beneath the calm, both carried quiet fears. Grace wondered how long this respect would last once reality set in. Daniel wondered if he was strong enough to love someone whose pain mirrored his own so closely. When the check arrived, Daniel instinctively stood to reach for it, then paused, realizing how many moments in Grace's life were filled with people assuming what she could or could not do. He waited. She smiled and insisted they share it. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Over the following weeks, their connection deepened. Daniel introduced Grace to Lily carefully, with prayer and patience. Lily was curious at first, then fiercely protective. She asked questions without filters, and Grace answered them with honesty and humor. Soon, Lily was pushing Grace's wheelchair in the park, pretending it was a race car, while Daniel watched from a bench, his heart doing something unfamiliar. Healing. Not everyone approved. Daniel's parents worried about the challenges ahead. Grace's friends warned her not to get her hopes too high. Strangers stared. Inaccessible sidewalks turned simple outings into obstacles. There were nights Grace cried alone, afraid of being a burden. There were nights Daniel lay awake, afraid of failing again. But every time fear rose, they returned to the same place: prayer, humility, and the belief that love was not meant to be easy, only worth it. The real test came when Grace was offered a chance to speak at a regional church conference about faith after trauma. It meant travel, vulnerability, and standing, or rather sitting, on a stage in front of hundreds. Old insecurities flooded back. She almost declined. Daniel did not push her. He simply reminded her of the night they met, of the courage it took to roll through those doors despite past hurt. He reminded her that her story mattered. The conference was a turning point. Grace spoke with raw honesty, not hiding her pain or polishing her faith into something unreal. People wept. People lined up afterward to thank her, some in wheelchairs, some carrying invisible wounds. Daniel watched from the audience with Lily sitting beside him, and for the first time since his wife passed, he felt a future opening instead of closing. As this story moves toward its end, if it has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like the video, share it, and subscribe. Stories like this only spread when people choose compassion over indifference. Not long after, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Daniel and Grace returned to the same restaurant where they first met. This time, the staff recognized them, smiling warmly. Daniel had something planned, not a grand gesture, but a meaningful one. He knelt again, not because Grace was in a wheelchair, but because humility had become the language of his love. He committed his life to walking or rolling forward together, whatever that path looked like. Grace said yes through tears that carried gratitude instead of fear. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel, or tell us about a moment when kindness changed your life. Your words may inspire someone who feels unseen today. Grace did not walk again. Daniel did not become a hero who fixed everything. Life remained complex, sometimes painful, often beautiful. But together they built a family rooted in patience, faith, and respect. Lily learned that love is not about perfection, but presence. And somewhere, in quiet moments most people never notice, a woman in a wheelchair and a single father continued to prove that honor is not about what we see. It is about how deeply we choose to see each other. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Like, comment, and share so more people can believe again in kindness, second chances, and love that kneels not in pity, but in honor.